Hello and welcome to Guild Wars Players News, the podcast where we take a look at Guild Wars game series news and talk about the content on our site, Guild Wars Players. I'm Sithrith, and today we have Draculetta.
Hey, everybody.
And Athelros.
Hey.
Oh, that was a very cheerful hey. That was kind of surprising.
That was kind of cheerful coming from you. What's going on? My world is all askew now.
The introduction caught me off guard.
All right. Well, so today the show is going to be a little bit different. There was a big update this week. The season 2 Living Story finale came. We're going to hold all of our discussion about that because all of us have quite a few things to say about it. We're going to have that off to the very end of the podcast after we do the whole follow us at Twitter stuff. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, you can turn it off. I'll let you know, obviously, before we start talking about it, but that way you can still enjoy the whole podcast and you don't have to worry about skipping around and accidentally hearing spoilers, because we totally understand how obnoxious that can be. So, yeah, if you are interested in hearing about our thoughts on the point of no return, stay tuned till the end of the show. But, yeah, this week we did get the point of no return Living Story Season 2. Patch notes came up, and it's pretty standard stuff. You know, the Living Story came out, so that's a thing. There's some bug fixes, a couple tweaks to some class traits, it seems. Obviously, a lot more work on the structured player versus player ladder system. And then, of course, Drac can tell us all about the sales and the stuff that's in the gem store.
I can. You want me to do that right now?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. We have new let's try that again. Mordrim weapons in the store. From the ones I've looked at, they're pretty sweet, kind of expensive, I think. But I guess if you look for some new skins for your weapons, they are in there. You can get a mini rocks. Everybody wants a little rocks following them around, so you can now get that. And you can also get the new ghostly mail carrier. You can have a little ghost deliver and send your mail off, which this is pretty sweet. I might actually be tempted to buy that. I haven't seen any mail couriers yet that I've liked, but this one looks pretty sweet, so I might actually get this one.
Okay.
And then also
of course,
the store, we have the mini 3-packs.
Oh, okay.
Well, see what I did there?
You tricked me.
I did. Yeah, the mini 3-packs are going away after this week, so they are retiring the random mini 3-packs. So if you want to try to get some of those minis that are in that 3-pack, now is your time, because they're going to retire them after this week. Who knows if that means they'll bring them back or not. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But the big thing in the gem store is the new colors for the hair and the eyes.
Yeah. They're very vibrant colors, I must say.
They are. They are very vibrant.
You thought you had white hair before, but with the celestial dye color option for hair, now you will have really white hair. Really, really white hair. I made a post with screenshots of all the new hair and eye color options that you can get from the Total Makeover kits. It's up on the site. And yeah, I assume Drac has tried out some of these hair colors at this point, and I assume we'll talk about that later also. But also this week, we did get some kind of leaked information. It wasn't official, but some people on Reddit were going through the United States Patent Office website and discovered a little trademark and a little logo. This was before the point of no return patch hit, so this was new news at that time. But a little logo and trademark was discovered called Guild Wars 2 Heart of Thorns, and it featured a big circular-looking, viney, kind of thorn-covered green dragon circling. It says Guild Wars 2 and then Heart of Thorns, and it was trademarked by NCSoft, which owns ArenaNet. So that was like, everybody was freaking out about that earlier in the week. And then a few days later, of course, point of no return hit, and that information was confirmed, basically. I'll say that much. So that was pretty cool. So we don't know if that's going to be an expansion or just a very highly marketed update. It's not clear. I'm thinking it's going to be an expansion because, that whole PAX South announcement that's coming out on January 24th. Speaking of which, that PAX South panel called Beyond the Point of No Return is going to be on Twitch. So if you follow the Guild Wars 2 Twitch channel, then you will be able to watch that entire announcement panel or whatever it is that they're going to be doing at that panel on Twitch. You don't have to wait till news sites report on it. You can watch it live, which is pretty cool. And then on to the site news. This week, Tapco put out another really good guide about the original Guild Wars. And Drac, what do you think about this Of Heroes and Henchmen guide?
Another great guide from Tapco, covers the basics of your heroes and your henchmen and how you get them. They're a little confusing at first, but once you get it down and you learn how to trait them and unlock them, heroes are a wonderful addition to Guild Wars. And a pro tip, as it were, from me, if you want to save yourself a lot of heartache and time, play with heroes. Don't bother with henchmen unless you have to use henchmen, because the heroes are so much better, and you can actually get armor for them, which Tapco covers in the article. So another big thumbs up to Tapco. If you're curious on how they work, you can read that, and he explains how to get them. He tells you how to get Mox, which is a golem that you can get.
Ooh, cool.
So
sounds handy.
Good job, Tapco.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tapco. This week, the video community spotlight is something near and dear to Ethelros and I's hearts, because it's about the Sylvari/dance emote. Ethelros, I know you watched this video because I sent it to you before I posted it.
Yeah, you did. For background's sake, should point out that we like to use this dance emote on our Sylvari a lot.
A lot.
Especially synchronized.
Everywhere. Yes.
Yeah.
Pro tip, by the way, in case you didn't know, if you want to synchronize as you're dancing in game with someone else, type /dance space asterisk, and if you do that within 5 seconds of each other, your dance moves will be synced up, and it is glorious. Anyway, continue.
But yeah, this video kind of gives examples of both the in-game dance and its actual origin. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that name, but it's there. You can read it.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to try and pronounce it. I think it is pronounced... I think it is pronounced Disco Wally Kisco, I believe. It is a Bollywood dance. Well, that's the name of the song, but yeah, that's my attempt. Have fun with that.
Kind of an interesting choice by Arena. I'm not really sure what provoked them to picking this one, but it's a nice dance.
Yeah. I mean, like, the Char dance, I know, is based on the Haka, and that makes sense because, if you don't know, the Haka is a Pacific, like, Polynesian area form of, like, it's like a war dance that a lot of different indigenous people do in the Pacific. The most famous one being New Zealand, Maori Haka, because the All Blacks rugby team does a Haka before every game, and it's a whole thing. So it's a war dance, and so it makes sense for the Char because they're all very warlike. The Asura dance is the robot, which makes sense because Asuras basically build robots. That's basically what the golems are. Humans do some kind of, what is it, like a square dancey type thing, I think? Something like that?
Something like that, which is, I mean, they're humans, so any dance they do makes sense.
Yeah. Literally anything that we do would make sense.
The Norns is...
Yeah, the Norn
ridiculous.
Makes no sense whatsoever.
The Norn dance is if you're not familiar with the show, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the character Carlton in that show does a specific dance of his, and that is what the Norn dance is. The Norn do the Carlton for reasons completely unknown to us.
He's a Norn, apparently.
Apparently. But it looks ridiculous. So that's That's dancing in Guild Wars 2. This week's community outfit is yet another outfit from Zero Kitsune. This time he sent in a picture of his Sylvari Elementalist, and this is definitely a very, very different looking Sylvari than what you might normally see. In-game, Zero Kitsune writes, "Here is my traveled Sylvari Elementalist. The rough and tumble life of an adventurer has left this sprout changed. There are reasons the consortium makes adventurers sign a waiver before entering the fractals." So this is a very different, unique kind of outfit. The Elementalist has the Zodiac armor mostly, so instead of regular skin, it's that like shifting starfield blue, whatever going on. It's got the carapace shoulder guard, so big giant butterfly, and to top it all off, and also that rose back piece, and then to top it all off, a baseball hat, because why not? So that's definitely one of the more unique outfits I've ever seen, and good choice of colors, I think. So if you would like to, send in a picture of your character, and if you want us to talk about it and post it up on the site, you can send us your outfit to contact@guildwarsplayers.com. Send us your screenshots with the subject line "weekly outfit." I'd really like to see your outfit because, as Drac and Thelros can attest, basically one of my favorite activities in game is standing around in the grove and just staring at how pretty everybody's characters are. So send me your screenshots. I'd love to talk about how pretty your characters are. And now for the lore book, where we take a place, character, race, or artifact and examine the lore surrounding it and why it's important to our gameplay. This week, I am talking about Destiny's Edge, which isn't really a place, character, or race, or artifact, rather than a group of people, and they play a pretty central role in the personal story that we take part in Guild Wars 2. Basically, Destiny's Edge is a band of heroes led by the Norn, Ersta Galkin, and I guess her direwolf Garm also. And there are two Asuran Golemancers, Snaf and Zoja, who, as Drac will tell you, is voiced by Felicia Day in Guild Wars 2. And there's also Kaith the Sylvari, Ritlock Brimstone the Char, Logan and Logan Thackeray, who is Queen Jenna's champion and captain. So, depending on which race you play as in Guild Wars 2, you will definitely interact with one of these people. Obviously, if you play Norn, you'll talk to Air. If you talk to Kaith, you're Sylvari. If you play a Char, you talk to Ritlock. If you play a human, you talk to Logan. And if you play an Asura, you talk to Zoja. So that's kind of how they tie into our personal story. But the reason that they are so prominent and why they're so legendary is this group was actually originally composed of two groups: Edge of Steel, which was Ritlock, Logan, and Kaith, and Dragonspawn's Destiny, which was Air, Garm, Snaf, and Zoja. And Edge of Steel was a kind of pit fighting group, and they were very, very successful. And Air was looking to put together a team to kill the Dragonspawn of Jormag, so like Jormag's main champion. So she devised this plan to get these two groups together and take on the Dragonspawn. So they successfully killed this Dragonspawn of Jormag, and from there they were so successful they went on to kill a couple other dragon champions. So they killed Morgus Lethe, who was one of Zaitan's champions, and he was a dead ship captain near Lion's Arch. And they also killed the Destroyer of Life, which was a champion of Primordus in the Maguma jungle near Radasum. The last thing they did together as a group was they went to fight Glint, who is the champion of the Elder Dragon Kralkatork in the Crystal Desert. Only when they got there, they discovered that she was actually on their side, and Glint had betrayed Kralkatork and wanted to help them. So instead, Kralkatork wakes up and flies south from where he was sleeping, and that is how you get the Dragon Brand. And he comes and attacks them at the Crystal Desert. Destiny Edge attempts to kill and fight Kralkatork, however, and if you're wanting to read the second book in the Guild Wars books series, this is a spoiler. However, if you also play Guild Wars 2, you'll probably know this by now anyway. At the last minute, Logan Thackeray was called away by Queen Jenna to go help her, so he left the group insufficiently defended and guarded, and their mission failed. Glint was killed, and their co-member Snaff was also killed. So Kralkatork flew off, not dead, and the group kind of fell apart from there. And in the personal story, as you might know, Kate and others are still kind of trying to get the group back together, but the differences caused by this event have been a bit difficult to overcome for them. So yeah, that is Destiny's Edge, and you'll see so much of them in Guild Wars 2. But anyway, Thoros, what did you do this week in game? Lots of stuff.
Yeah, a fair amount of stuff. Probably the most prominent thing is I finally managed to get my Mesmer to 80, which did not take as long as I thought it would. Getting a bunch of skill point things, the level up stuff helped, but yeah, been playing a lot. I also managed to get to 50% map completion. I think I'm now at like 53.
Means you're definitely ahead of me. I think on my first level 80, my Mesmer, she's only at 49% still, I think. So definitely ahead of me.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who doesn't leave a zone, very rarely leaves a zone until I've 100%ed it. So pretty much every zone quest is in, I've done that.
Nice.
So I'm still working on that. I also did the... one of the places I 100%, by the way, was the Strait of Devastation, which is not something I recommend doing unless you actually have a foothold in the region, because it's very hard to do when there's a million mobs around.
I imagine. It doesn't seem fun.
No. I did all my personal story up until the very last fight with Zaitan, which obviously requires a group, so I haven't gotten around to doing that yet. Still going to be doing that at some point. And finally, I suppose I did the Chapter 8 Living Story, which we'll bring up later.
We will certainly have a discussion about all of that later.
I also finished reading Edge of Destiny 2, which funnily enough is the same thing as the Soulflix. So
what did you think of the book?
It was pretty good, actually. The whole Logan thing, it kind of... I wouldn't say I think maybe I can slightly understand more his... I don't want to say reasoning, because he wasn't even thinking at that point. But I can kind of see the situation where it's very, very awkward, no matter what.
Yeah. I suppose. But I still don't like him. Drag, what did you do this week?
My Norn Ranger got to level 80.
Level 80 is for everyone.
That's right. Looks like we all hit 80 this week. So yay. Did my personal story up through level 70. I died a lot in the Battle of Fort Trinity. That thing was insane. I finally changed my tactics and I got through it, but holy cow, that was like a crazy fight to have to do.
Oh, yeah.
So now I'll get on my 80, and then I told Etheros before the show that once I get there, I'll get to the point where he's at, and we can try to find a group and do that level 80 together. Also spent some money not some money, but some gems this week and bought the Total Makeover Kit. Because I read your article, Sithrith, and I seen that flame red hair, and I was like, oh, my Norn's got to have that.
I thought of you when I saw that hair.
I'm all about the flame hair. That's right. So now my Norn Ranger has the flame red hair and a new hairstyle and flame red eyes to go with it. Because why not? That was pretty much all I did this week. It was basically just my Norn Ranger. I was kind of sad. I had a really total lack of my Elementalist and Felicia Day this week. So,
no!
Next week I'm gonna have to just play make up for it. Play my Ellie all week and make up for that, and just get all that Zoja in I can. Because we'll talk about that later too. That I'm not happy.
Because we'll talk about that later.
Because later,
Yes.
okay.
I imagine not.
And how about you? What did you do this week?
Well, I also got a character to level 80 this week. I got my Elementalist level 80, so that was pretty exciting. I definitely made use of a lot of those tomes of knowledge that you can get as login rewards. That I might have used like 6 or 7 of them, because why not? So that happened. I also deleted my Char Thief and replaced her with a Sylvari Thief because I just freaking love salads so much. I just love Sylvari so much. It's a problem.
Okay, let's talk about this Sylvari addiction. How many Sylvaris do you have now?
Let's see. I've got a Sylvari Mesmer. I've got a Sylvari Elementalist. I've got a Sylvari Guardian. I've got a Sylvari Ranger. I've got a Sylvari Warrior, and now I've got a Sylvari Thief. So that is 6.
The main one you're lacking then is the class that shall not be named.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's. I also don't have a Sylvari Engineer because it just doesn't. That seems weird to me. I can't. No. Doesn't make any sense. But and then yeah, Necromancers don't make any sense for other reasons. Well, yeah, we'll get to that. So yeah, I definitely have a Sylvari addiction. But the thing is, like, it's so good because you can make them nearly literally any color. Like, what other game or like other class can you, or race, can you make a character any color scheme you want? It's amazing. I love it. I love Sylvari.
The first step is admitting you have a problem. You know that, right?
Yeah, well, I just did, so there you go.
Okay.
Done.
We're good. Done. Next.
Yep. Yeah, well, next, Doros and I did a little something kind of insane this week, and we spent 6 straight hours doing jumping puzzles. And I think we completely lost our minds. And I just like to take this time also to apologize to anybody who's in our guild with us, because you probably think we're absolutely insane, but you'd probably also be right. Thoros and I discovered a new hobby, which is misspelling words on purpose and typing them in guild chat. So, thus the Mesm-nerd was born.
Yeah. I was tired. That's my excuse. I don't know what yours is.
6 hours of jumping puzzles, I would maybe think, has a little slight thing to do with that. That's about 5.5 hours too many, if you ask me.
I don't think it was like 6 straight jumping puzzle hours, but most of the time was spent doing jumping puzzles.
That's insane. You two are just completely insane. I'm just going to call it right now.
I've actually done quite a few of them at this point, too. Should be that many left.
Hopefully. We'll see. Although, to be fair, that 6 hours, we did also do some that we've already done. Because insanity.
Reasons.
Because reasons. This week I also spent some time leveling up my Ranger, playing with Andang and Braxwolf, because they've been playing a lot lately. So I also played with them because I love playing Guild Wars too. And I think that's about it for what we did in game this week. We didn't run any dungeons together this week. That's kind of disappointing. We'll have to make up for that.
Slacking on that.
Yeah, and like
we have been slacking.
We can start doing fractals now too, because we're all 80.
I know, we're level 80, so we've got a lot to catch up on.
That's pretty exciting.
I know, we can just do tons of dungeons. Oh wait, no, yeah, I did do a dungeon last night. Not with either of you though, unfortunately. It was with Andang and Brax. I did a dungeon. We did Ascalonian Catacombs story mode because neither of them had done dungeons before, and I'd just like to say thank you to the very kind Char who sat with us for a very, very long time. While I messed up the LFG tool, first of all, I accidentally advertised our group for the Loving Story, which explained why I had like 5 people join the group and then leave. And then Drac tried to join us, but then couldn't because connection issues. So this Char sat with us and waited for a very, very long time. And so good on that person for being patient with us. So, yay, that. Anyway, this week we don't have any Patreon mentions from Patreon, but we sure would love your support. The Players Alliance Network Patreon currently has 7 supporters, and we'd really like to see that number grow. So to help support us at Guild Wars Players, simply go to the donation page on our website, and you can support the Players Alliance on Patreon. You can find rewards there, like you can get a mention on this show, or you can even come on to this show, be in the Skype call with us, and you'll get to be a guest, which is super fun. So you should do that. We didn't get any iTunes reviews this week. Still just the one from Brax. If you want to give us a review, if you really like us, or if you don't, you just want to give us a bad review, I guess. I wouldn't be too happy about that, but you can still do it. You can go to iTunes and look up Guild Wars Players News Podcast, and you'll find us there. We do have a featured comment this week, though, from Zero Kitsune, who commented on episode 5 of this podcast, saying, a bit of information about Living Story Season 2 versus the personal story and original dungeon paths and level of difficulty. Originally, the content was based off the players using blues and greens. That refers to the rarity level of the items. Exotics were meant to be a long progression to gain, legendaries being held by a few players, making them, well, legendary. Exotics, in actuality, ended up being easier to gain than expected. With the addition of ascended items, some players now have a slight edge, making the content that much easier. To make matters more frustrating to the developers was a lot of the abilities and stats are being ignored in favor of the dominant game theory of Berserker's Gear, also known as the Zerker meta. During the run of Season 1, the developers had time to learn with the community what worked and how players were going through content. So when the newer dungeon paths, fractals, and Season 2 of the Living Stories are made for level 80 players wearing exotics, also Season 2 especially has been looking to make the Zerker meta less relevant. Much of this has been done using new game mechanics that especially lately have made some builds difficult in sections. All of the Living Story Season 2 steps on the first pass/normal mode can be completed solo, but it's challenging and made to be that way. One of the best ways to lower the difficulty as well as add more fun is by grouping up. And that is because last week I kind of went on a little rant about how stuck I was on the Living Story. I've since finished all the Living Story for reasons we'll discuss later. And I know Thelros has quite a bit to say about Living Story difficulty, so we're going to save that till the end also, because that's going to be a thing. We did not receive any emails this week, but you can email us at podcast@guildwarsplayers.com with any of your questions, concerns, or thoughts you have about the show generally. You can follow all of us here on Twitter. You can follow the Players Alliance Network at Players Ally. You can follow Guild Wars Players at GW Players. You can follow me, Sithrith, at Sithrith, and I'm in-game at Sithrith.6741. You can follow Draculetta on Twitter at Draculetta_72 and in-game at Draculetta.7401. And Athelros is on Twitter at Athelros and in-game at Athelros.3164. You can listen to all the Players Alliance live shows. Mondays is 8:30 p.m. Eastern is the DDO Players News show. Thursdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern is Guild Wars Players News. And Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern is Lotro Players News. And you can find the link to all those shows at guildwarsplayers.com/live. And now, friends, is the time for our Living Story thoughts. So who wants to start talking about this?
I
Thelros,
think I'll
maybe?
wait. I think
Okay.
I'll wait.
Okay. I guess I'll go first. So, the point of no return. I'm just going to get it out of the way. Okay. Oh yeah, right. I have to do a spoiler warning. This is a spoiler. Everything you hear from now on is going to be about the lore and what happens in the point of no return. And if you don't want to be spoiled, turn off the podcast now, because here we go. Okay, so the point of no return is basically that Sylvari are apparently Mordremoth's minions, or we're supposed to be Mordremoth's minions. The Dream/the Pale Tree or whatever, or Ventari's Tablet, it's not really quite sure which part of that equation, has basically been protecting the Sylvari from Mordremoth's influence. And we find this out at the start of the Living Story Chapter 8, when we use the last memory seed with Kaith, and we go into her memory. And we find her and Fallon have trapped Wynn in this cave, and basically Wynn is like, I have the secret, I can't tell Fallon because she'll just ruin everything for everyone forever. I'm going to tell you, because I don't know why, Kaith, and she tells Kaith, like, we are Mordremoth's minions. We are supposed to belong to the jungle dragon, and then Kaith kills her because she says so. So that happens. Then we fight a big dragon, which Atharos is super fond of. And then the final cutscenes are first you see the Pact fighting or flying from Camp Resolve, I assume, and getting attacked by Mordrum vines and then all crashing to the ground and maybe dying. It's not really sure. Then the final cutscene is basically a kind of a trailer for whatever Heart of Thorns is, assuming it's an expansion. We see humans and Char fighting Mordrum and Sylvari, who might have turned Mordrum off at this point, and it seems maybe people are going to be turning against Sylvari generally. So that's what happened in the stuff, and people are freaking out. Freaking out. Personally,
well
I was as well they should, because that is quite a game changer. Although many people have had theories that either that the Pale Tree is a dragon itself or is a Mordremoth minion. I mean, especially when you think about it, Mordremoth is the jungle and plant dragon. Sylvari are plant people. I guess it makes sense. But I remember at first, upon reading it, it got spoiled for me, first of all. So I didn't really have all the information. I hadn't seen the whole thing. I got spoiled, and at first I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But then I started freaking out, and so I had to go and finish the living story. So I powered through the living story, even though I actually really hate the gameplay of it. And just because I wanted to see how all of it goes down. And then, now I'm kind of okay with it. Some of my characters I'm gonna, I always have a headcanon for all of my characters. I don't necessarily really role play with them, but they all have little stories. And some of them are just going to be like, yeah, I'm with the Pale Tree, and then others are kind of going to lean into this whole Mordremoth thing. So, yeah, that's why, yeah, I'm obsessed with Sylvari, so this is a very big thing for me. What are your guys' thoughts on this whole Sylvari as Mordremoth minions? Surprise.
Well, when it first, when I was playing through it and they first sort of reveal that, I wasn't so much shocked as I was just kind of thinking, yeah, that actually does make a lot of sense, and I'm kind of surprised I didn't consider that a possibility sooner. Because, I mean, there aren't that many all-powerful spirits that aren't the dragons themselves, in terms of something that could create that much life, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Who else could? Since the human gods are pretty much not around anymore.
Right.
There really isn't anywhere else they could have come from.
Yeah, it does seem pretty improbable that a random seed in a cave spawns a whole race of people on its own.
Yeah. I am wondering kind of what would have happened if Ventari's tablet hadn't been placed there. Because at least
That's
this is
the thing.
my theory, is that is the main thing that is what kept the Sylvari from just becoming straight up minions rather than their
Okay,
own.
so here's the thing. I know for your Mesmer, for your personal story, I don't remember what you picked, but you did the thing where you go with Karis and Tegwin to deal with that mirror or whatever that leads to Or.
Yeah,
I know
in
you did
Or,
that for
yeah.
your personal story. For my Mesmer and my Elementalist, actually, the personal story for us, oh my gosh, I'm referring to my characters as us. Wow, that's happening. What the personal story for that bit was that you come across this Sylvari who doesn't remember, he woke up in a river and these wardens found him, and basically he doesn't remember anything, where he was, what his name is, or anything. So you can take him to the Pale Tree to have a specialist look at the dream and look at him and try and figure out what his dream was and figure out where he's been and what happened to him and stuff. And you find out that he's actually from a different tree. He is from a different tree who does not have Ventari or any of that stuff. But he still looks like a Sylvari and everything. And his name is Malik, so that's the thing to reference. But yeah, so I am wondering now, what the deal with that is. Why is he human-shaped like the Pale Tree? Because They're like, the Sylvari from the Pale Tree, because supposedly the Pale Tree Sylvari look like humans because Ronan, the human, tended to this tree while it was growing, and so the Pale Tree was like, okay, yeah, I'll make Sylvari shaped like that. And if the Pale Tree, there's like the Pale Tree and the Sylvari were supposed to be making Mordrim minions, then why isn't this other Sylvari who's not part of that, why isn't he a Mordrim minion to begin with? Is it just because Mordremoth hasn't woken up yet? Is he gonna now just immediately turn into a Mordrim? So that's a thing, and it's gonna be weird, because there are other trees that exist putting out Sylvari.
Yeah. One possible theory maybe is that the tree that we know is perhaps the major one, and when the tablet thing on, obviously they kind of created the template, so to speak, for the Sylvari, it kind of spread them to all the other trees.
So like an offshoot almost.
Yeah, that became the default, possibly.
Mm.
But I don't really have
I can
anything
see
to support that. That's just kind of a guess.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of questions that are really hard to answer at this point. Yeah, especially because it's like the whole Nightmare Court thing, the soundless Sylvari, lots of stuff.
Kind of more curious where they're going to go in the future, because obviously in the cinematic you see a lot of Char and humans fighting Sylvari. I'm wondering whether those are Sylvari that have gone to Mordrim's side, or whether they kind of become so scared by them, the fact that they are created by Mordrim, that there's kind of sort of a civil war sort of thing happening.
Yeah, there's that one part in the cutscene where like it specifically says that Ridlock is saying like, forget the Sylvari, they belong to the dragon now. So obviously some people don't care about us anymore. But yeah, it's gonna be, the pushback is potentially very severe.
Something I'm wondering especially is whether they maybe will resort to kind of extreme measures to sort of contain the Sylvari, perhaps rounding them up, tagging, that sort of thing.
No, I'm not pretty
That seems like a kind of resort they might, go to.
Right. Well, and I know, like, before the call, Drek was saying, the Pale Tree right now, because of previous events in the Living Story, the Pale Tree is currently pretty injured and is in unconscious state right now. So either the Pale Tree might die on her own because she's so weak, or what if the other races come in and kill the Pale Tree, trying to, kill off this whole potential problem. Could have serious consequences for those of us who have 6 Sylvari. Like me. But yeah, lots of theories going on. Definitely looking forward to what this PAX South panel is gonna possibly reveal, or just if it's gonna just give us more questions. It'll be interesting. But now I think the thing that's on Thelros's mind is... Oh, wait, no, just kidding. There's still a little bit more story to talk about. Drek, how do you feel about the last cutscene?
What? Oh, don't... Okay. So, I have actually not... Just a disclaimer here. I have actually not ran any of this in-game yet since I just hit 80. But I was watching... I'll give a shout-out to them. Aurora, Peachy, and Bogotter, who are pretty big in the Guild Wars 2 community. I'm sure a lot of people know those names. I was watching them run the Living Story last chapters, and I then saw the cutscene. I am not happy with this cutscene whatsoever. Well, there's one part where I'm kind of excited about it, and there's one part where I'm like, no. I am not happy to see my poor little Zosha flying through the air, getting blown up off of a ship. What is this about, ArenaNet? What's going on?
Drek demands answers.
I do demand answers. If you even kill Zosha off, that we are going to have words. I'm going to go to Seattle, and I'm going to go to your offices, and we're going to have words. So yeah, that part I'm not happy about. But
there's a very interesting part that I know you're very excited about.
Yes, the Guild Wars original part of me was very exciting because
I had to point this out to you. By the way,
you did.
You didn't even notice it.
I did not see it until you told me the time code to look, and then as soon as you told me the time code to look, because in my defense, it goes by really really quick in the.
It is. It's only on the screen for like 2 or 3 seconds.
In the quote unquote trailer, there is something that like flies onto the screen, and that something is
the Mersat.
A freaking Mersat. It's a Mersat. So, what does that mean? Does that mean the Mersat are here to help us? Which I would highly doubt if you know what the Mersat are. Does that mean the Mersat's going to be a playable race? Which would be amazing if it was, because Mersat are just awesome and amazing. So yeah, so that's pretty exciting if that's what that means. But then I also saw on Reddit that a lot of people are saying that's not a Mersat at all. It's a white mantle.
What the heck would it be? Oh.
Because if you look at the hats the white mantle wear, they kind of look similar to what the Mersats look like. And I guess there's a...
But how would they explain all the fly appendages?
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess there's a lot of references to the white mantle. There's some area where you can get an achievement for picking up white mantle badges. So a lot of people are speculating it's not a Mersat at all. They just did that to make people think it was. It's really going to be
kind of like with the
Jade
mantle. Worm thing
from
the trailer.
Yeah, exactly.
Which turned out to just be like, look, it's a worm in Jade. Okay, cool. That's it.
It's a worm. You know what this means? It doesn't mean anything. Yeah, so I'm hoping that really does mean the Mersat are going to come in some form or fashion, because Mersats were just my favorite part of Guild Wars, and if you ever remembered fighting them before you ascended, they were crazy because they could kill you in one hit if you weren't ascended. So it was, they had this skill called Spectral Agony that, you were just dead. That's why in the original Guild Wars you actually had to ascend. You had to actually ascend so you could actually take that Spectral Agony hit and not die from it. It's still... Jeez. Hurt you very badly, but you didn't die instantly from it. So yeah, Mersats are pretty bad little things, so it's going to be interesting to see if it's actually Mersat, what's going to happen.
Yeah. Lots of insanity going on in the story right now.
But poor Zosha. Poor Zosha.
I'm so upset, because I know a lot of people, I don't know why, but I know a lot of people really hate Traherne. But I love Traherne, and if he's dead, I'm going to be so sad. I'm going to be so sad. If Logan dies, I don't really care. I don't like Logan.
It is pretty good timing that all the people who kind of would be in a position to maybe calm things down regarding the Sylvari are MIA.
Yeah.
Which leaves pretty much just Ritlock. And he is not in a good state of mind right now, apparently.
Well, that's the thing. He's still... That's the confusing part about that last cutscene / trailer thing, because last we saw of Ritlock was a few chapters ago where he stabs Sahothan into the ground. It opens up this big portal to the mists. He jumps through. He's been lost in the mist for the past however long that was ago in real time. So we don't really know what Ritlock's doing, how he gets back. What he's been doing, there's so many questions about that. But yeah, he obviously wouldn't know anything about Sylvari not being necessarily evil, because he's been gone, and who knows how he got back. We'll see, I guess. But he's not dead, obviously, if he does that, so that's good. I like Ritlock, but I won't like him if he decides to kill off all my Sylvari. Definitely won't like him then. I think it's time to deal with the elephant in the room that is Thelros's rant on the living story. Go. Do it.
it's not so much an elephant in the room as is a dragon in a cave, but all right.
Yeah, well,
I'll just say that for the record, the actual story of Chapter 8 was great. I like it. I hadn't done Living Story before, so I had like no pretty much preconception of what it might have been like. So yeah, that was fine. I hate that fight. I really do. I hate it. I hate it with all of my hate. It is the worst boss fight I have experienced in a video game. Period.
and he plays Dark Souls, you guys.
I played Dark Souls, both of them, and that was nothing compared to this. It wasn't... It's not even that I'd say it was like too challenging for me. It's just the way it's set up. It's like... Well, first of all, the amount of knockdowns and stuff, if you get hit by one thing, you get knocked flying, obviously. And then it takes like a few seconds or a couple of seconds for you to get up. By the time you do that, you're going to get hit by something else because there's that much AoE going off. And then there's the fact that eventually you're going to end up getting downed. And then when you're downed, there's pretty much nothing for you to kill most of the time. I think actually all the time you can't actually kill anything to get back up, so you're done from that point. You just have to wait for yourself to bleed out, I guess. Which, you know, depending on how good you are at dodging and rolling, might happen over and over and over again. And then at some point your equipment's going to break. And for whatever reason, there is not a repair thingy in the instance. Which means that if your equipment's broken and you don't have anything on hand to repair it with, you have to leave the instance to go repair. And then when you come back to do it again, you have to start all over again, which is absolutely delightful.
Yeah. As you know from my past rants on the show, I am also not super fond of the, here's the thing, I don't even want to call it the quote-unquote difficulty of the living story. It's not that it's like the gameplay is like challenging or like, oh, I gotta tweak my build and like make it better. Like it's just there are so many mechanics in these fights that are just like either you do it or you don't, and if you mess up for like 1 second, you're just dead and you have to start over, kind of things. That it's infuriating. For example, last week my big problem was chapter 5 of the Living Story, and you have to fight a crystal guy. And he's standing in the middle of this big ring of damage over time stuff. And basically, if you're in that damage over time stuff without the proper buff, you'll die within a second or two. And you have to kill minions that he summons, and when you kill them, you get a color buff on you. You have to run over to the crystal in the room that corresponds with the color buff you got, and then you get a buff that lets you the AoE around him, and you get to attack him for like 7 or 10 seconds, and then you got to get out really quick, or else you'll die in a second. And it was infuriating, because if I was just 1 second too late, I'd take too much damage, or I'd get knocked down, and I'd fall, and I'd have to start back from the checkpoint again. But starting back from the checkpoint in that instance, it's not like, oh, he just stays at the same health. He would regen all of his health. And so I'd have to start all over again, and it takes ages to go through this whole cycle of stupid things. And that's the problem with this dragon fight, too. You have to cycle through this very specific set of stupid mechanics. You have to defeat the little vines that come up, and then you have to, like, your allies outside of the ring who can't help you have to throw in these bits of divine fire. You have to get the divine fire buff on you, go and light torches around the thing, and then once that happens, then you can finally actually attack the dragon's head for 15 seconds or whatever it is, and then you got to start the cycle over again. It's stupid, because it just takes forever to get anything done, and it's just a matter of, okay, these are the mechanics. Now I just have to sit through the stupid mechanics and make sure I don't mess up. And yeah.
I'd probably clarify again that, yeah, this is like the first time I've done the Living Story. So maybe for me, at least, like the fact that I struggled so much doing this, I didn't actually end up completing it, by the way. It was that bad for me. The fact that I haven't done this before maybe means that I struggled more than the average player did, but
that's the thing. Like, I somehow was able to push past the chapter 5 thing somehow, and so I was able to finish that. So I was able to finish the dragon fight thing I don't know how, but it took me a really long time. I think it took me like half an hour, 45 minutes to get down the stupid dragon. And then I tried to help you, and I just couldn't.
Yeah, I think you said you had the repair canisters on you.
Yeah, that's the thing. I used up a lot of repair canisters.
Yeah, I didn't have any. So that's probably a thing to bear in mind, is that with no armor, you obviously take a lot more damage from the things. And it's usually about like 3 hits. And that's pretty much enough to kill you at that point. Yeah. I didn't like it in general. It didn't feel dramatic at all to me.
No, yeah.
It felt like a Mario Party game. Like one of those mini games
I have
you
more
do.
fun doing Mario Party games. This was not fun. It just felt like a chore. Like, oh gosh, I have just to sit through the stupid fight just because I want to see the stupid cutscene. Like, it doesn't feel epic at all. It's just like, okay, I just have to sit through this stupid thing, wait for it to be done. But I have to like keep really focused to make sure I don't die. But it's not exciting. It's not interesting, because once you figure out the mechanic within the first couple of minutes, then it's fine. But you have to repeat this whole cycle over and over and over again to finally get it. And it just takes ages. And
how I think they could have maybe done it a little bit better is to have the actual stuff you have to dodge be directly from the dragon himself, rather than some sort of like, here's a vine that sprung out of nowhere, go dodge its attacks and stuff. Firstly, that cut down on the repetitiveness of go through this whole cycle, do it like 5 times or more, depending on how well you're doing. That's probably another thing I would do. Also, actually have you fight things more, rather than spending at least 90% of the time dodging stuff.
I'd say it was probably like 75 to 80% of the time. It was mostly dodging stuff, killing off those little tentacles or whatever, or trying to light the fires or like keep the shadow things from dousing your fires. But yeah,
Yeah, dodging stuff for like 10 minutes didn't feel epic. That's all I'll say for that.
And I think this goes back to what Zero Kitsune commented on last week's episode after my initial rant. We're new players. We don't have Ascended gear. We don't have Legendary gear. We're still mostly figuring out our traits. Well, to be fair, I think I've figured out my traits at this point. But this is 100% not new player friendly, unless you bring in an entire full group, I think. And even then, it might be difficult. But yeah, if you've been playing for ages and you've had the time to get your legendaries and get your ascended and you're all set with everything exactly that you could possibly have, yeah, fine, that's cool. Great that it's not, difficult for you. But as a new player who's only recently hit level 80 and sees this new update and is like, oh yeah, cool, new story, I want to experience story, this is incredibly punishing and difficult. It is not new player friendly at all.
So why do you think they would do that?
Well, I feel like the entire Living Story itself isn't new player friendly at all, because it relies on these characters from Season 1, and if you're just joining the game now, you can't experience Season 1 at all. You have to go on the internet and research what happened.
Right.
And spend all this time figuring out who these characters are that are getting referenced and talked about. So
basically,
yeah.
What I'm getting from what you're saying is this is more like their end game content, and it's designed for the older players and not for new players to do.
That's what it feels like.
At least that's what it feels like to you, yeah.
Yeah, it just sucks because, they put in these really cool, interesting storylines, and I want to see this story. I want to hear about whatever is happening in Tyria, and especially when they add in these huge lore bombs, like, oh, by the way, Sylvari are Mordremoth's minions. Have fun with that. It's just really frustrating. Because I wish that there was a story mode for Living Story, like there is for Dungeons, that's really easy, and then you can do the explorable paths or whatever that are harder if you're into that. Because, yeah.
Yeah, you would think they would do something like that because and from what I've read, it's not. A lot of people seem to have problems with some of the Living Story, and the difficulty level increased immensely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, even independent of the actual difficulty part, the issue of the flow and the actual the feel, I suppose, of had the way it's set up. Some things are just like anti-fun. Like not having a repair anvil in the instance is something that it needs to be there. It's there in the dungeons, as far as I know. Like each of them has a repair anvil if in case you die enough times that your equipment starts getting knackered. I don't know why they wouldn't have one in that when the instance the book chapter itself is kind of lengthy, I suppose, depending on how much time you spend doing it. But yeah, like something like that, I think I would at least rethink maybe putting him in from here on out.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So that's I think that's about all my thoughts on it. Again, I'll probably end up keeping doing the living story just to know what it's like. But yeah. And also story. But I really do hope that they consider, especially considering that they've taken all these steps in the past few months to make this new player experience and everything. I'd really hope that they would consider for season 3 adjusting things. Although I have noticed that between chapters even there's definitely been some things that have gotten better. So for example, like I said, with that chapter 5 fight where the crystal dude whatever thing regains all his health if you retry from checkpoint, I noticed for this fight at least the dragon did not regain all of his health when you retried from checkpoint. So that was good at least. And also in this chapter it seemed like there were NPCs there that were not fighting, so they weren't like in combat, they didn't have to deal with fighting or anything. And they were basically dedicated rezzers for you, so if you went down, like they just immediately start rezzing you, and that was really helpful.
Yeah, it did seem like maybe like if even in the ones where they weren't a dedicated rezzer, they seem at least more inclined to res you specifically,
and less inclined to dying frequently, which happens. So that was good, and I hope to see them kind of tweak that. Like I said, I don't necessarily want it to just be 100% easy all the time, but just making an option that is new player friendlier, even if there's like hardly any rewards. I don't care. I just want to be able to experience the story.
Like a story mode.
Yeah, like a story mode. That'd be fun. Any other thoughts on living story, or mechanics?
I think I've exhausted myself.
Alright. Drek?
I'm scared to even attempt this now, it sounds like.
Yeah.
If you're good at dodging, apparently you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, I think that's about it for our show. This is the longest show we've had so far. And yeah, next week we'll be back to just regular stuff, probably. And so thank you guys very much for watching, and look before you leap.